for Planet Green.
We have launched.
We've completely launched. We've started the show, and it is Planet Green Trees. We're about to embark 2 hours of medical marijuana and marijuana reform in Michigan.
Planet Green Trees. Attention, ladies and gentlemen. The Planet Green Trees show is underway with your host, attorney Michael Komorn.
Not so far.
All right, let's get started, though.
We have launched.
We're doing it live.
Sounds good.
Doing it live.
We're doing it live. Welcome. We've started Planet Green Trees episode number 514. We're calling it Rescinding the No Shirt, No Shoes policy.
Oh, boy.
No mask either.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
For indoor gatherings, for those that have been vaccinated, I know we got everyone's passport before they came in here today.
Yeah, I got my multi-pass.
Today's date is 5/6, the year 2021. And on this episode tonight, we have Chad Morrow from Smokers Alley and Rob Robar, the Helping Friendly Salve. They're in the queue. They're going to be discussing some of these topics that we have on the agenda in no particular order. There may be a rant. The legislature gears up to regulate Delta-8 and other cannabinoids in Michigan. What? We were just talking about Delta-8 and it's...
I thought Delta-8 didn't fall under the Controlled Substances Act.
Well, they're finding a way to put it there, Jim.
Oh, look at that.
Here's a new one, Canna
Mr.
Bumps.
Brisbane.
What could that mean?
Canna Bumps.
The new snortable marijuana is making waves in bloody noses.
Oh, God.
Is it causing bloody noses?
You know
I
It's
gotta
a
imagine
terrible
that.
idea.
it is.
I don't
But
know
we'll
that.
discuss it.
I don't want to do it.
These are topics I think we're going to talk about tonight. I think we've got all the people lined up for it.
Yeah.
Topic number 4: Biden isn't too busy to carry out the cruelties of the drug war.
Oh, God bless him for that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Of course he's not.
And let me tell you, really shocked.
Yeah. Like we haven't been calling that around here for the past 3 years.
Yep.
Yep.
I don't know what that specifically refers to. There's obviously a reference article that we will explore and explain in further detail. But
Just teasing
I heard
it.
some rumors about the banking laws and the access to information. Maybe we can get Schuyler.
And the fact that his courts just denied yet another appeal regarding 280E.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep.
There we go. I mean,
Yeah.
it is what it is. We knew it was.
Meet
gonna
the
be
new
this-
boss.
Is
right?
Jeff Frazier been notified, Justin, just to make sure that he's been given an opportunity to participate? Make sure, please.
Justin! All right, Justin says yes.
Number
but-
5, Detroit must stop processing recreational marijuana business license for now.
Yep.
The judge orders, or so they say.
Yep.
You're listening to Planet Green Trees, Michigan's #1 show about cannabis legal issues, licensing, regulations, compliance,
Number 1.
marijuana topics, including medical, current events, and other legal matters. I'm your host, Michael Komorn. With me tonight as we go around the room, let me...
Good evening, Michael. Good evening, everybody. It's good to be here, Michael. Your prime status is revoked. But
Coming out.
Come on,
hard.
Mayor.
looking forward to the show tonight. We've got some good guests, and yeah, glad to be here.
All right, good stuff. We have Round the Bend, the Creedence song. I've been listening to a lot of Creedence lately. We may have a quiz on that later. Amanda Joslin from the Elevation Station and a YouTube influencer in her own right. Please welcome Amanda Joslin.
Thank you, Michael. I'm happy to be here tonight with you guys. And I heard we've got some dessert teas steeping.
They are currently steeping, yes, ma'am, they are.
Steeping.
They're going to
So-
be of the scrape the bottle variety, and you guys know what I mean by that.
So it's going to be a good show.
All right, and of course the man
Or
who's
it's going to be a really bad show.
the man who's
Either way, we're doing it live, Jimmy.
we're doing it live. Turning to our next in studio part of the program here. And the one who's introduced the term steeping tonight, where it seems to be overused. Maybe he will define for us exactly what he means by steeping and if it falls in the category of specific terms of art with making tea.
We're going to start a new segment called Steeping with Steve.
Steeping with Steve. There you go.
It's going to be a dessert tea party.
I should say also that at a nominal cost, if someone wants to rent out Steve Miller for purposes of coming up with a name for something, like steeping in tea, he's available. Contact me. We can contract him out to you. Please welcome Steve Miller.
Thank you. It's good to be here. It's going to be a fun night. I'm revved up, and we're about to embark on some dessert teas, which should make the night even more interesting.
Explain what steep means. Is there a time frame that associates with steep? Is there something that occurs in the prepping of the steeping? What happens afterwards?
Well, it's just the length of the steeping of the tea bag in the hot water to get the most flavor out of the tea.
It's important.
Because then when you mix in the honey.
In layman terms, let me ask you this. In layman terms, the steeping essentially means taking the tea bag and put it in the hot water?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Steve's teabagging the hot water. That's
He's
right.
teabagging.
Are any of
There's
the
a
other,
method to it. You got to do it right.
are there any other nutrients in the
Oh God.
teabagging situation
This is
that
gonna go in a bad
involve
bad
themselves
direction.
with the process of the steep?
No,
Is it just water?
just
No,
water.
it's
Is it
just
warm? What
the
temperature?
water in the tea bag.
Okay, good.
So,
All right, I'm glad we got that all cleared up. Let's move up to the Zoom room. I see up in there we have specifically from the Smokers Alley of Westland, the one of the founders of the Delta 8 chemical itself. I understand. We can debate that later on. Please welcome Chad Morrow.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me on tonight.
all right. Always good to have
We're
you.
expecting a lot out of you because things are getting really
Yes.
confusing. You're going to have to straighten it out. Of course, to assist in
I've got a
the
lot to say.
straightening it out is Robar of the Helping Friendly Salve.
Great product.
Great product. It is being used frequently within the Steve Miller family.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's part of our tea tonight. Is this part
No,
of
no, we don't put the
All right,
salve
good.
in the tea.
Please welcome Rob
Probably better
Robar.
that way.
How you doing?
Good, Rob. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, so we have our introductions and some topics covered. Okay, so what I understand, and I know each of you, maybe both of you are both of what we're talking about, but there was some kind of, the Michigan legislature is gearing up to regulate Delta 8 and other cannabinoids in Michigan.
Surprise!
And according to a article written in the, what is this, the Free Press or something? I don't know. 2 months ago, Michigan head cannabis regular Andrew Brisboe announced a new legislative priority that the state bring Delta 8 THC and other cannabinoids under the same regulatory framework as Delta 9 THC. If a package of 8 proposed bills passed Michigan legislature this session, and Jim Powers in momentarily is going to explain us what the content of those 8 bills are, but speaking specifically about Delta 8 THC and bringing that into the Michigan's regulatory system, Brisboe and the regulatory agency will get to count a win if this occurs. What are we even talking about here? Some states are looking at banning this substance. That is not in the best interest of the people's state of Michigan, nor do I think it's good policy, said Rep. Yusuf Rabi, one of the co-sponsors of the package of the bills, in testimony before the Michigan House Regulatory Reform Committee. Each of you or both of you were observers of this, and I'm going to ask you more about that in a second, Rob and Chad. The product is out there. It's being sold in an unregulated way. It's being accessed by people that probably shouldn't be accessing it. Why not regulate it like Delta 9? This is about bringing Delta 8 into the regulatory framework so that it's licensed and tested. The 8 bills, as are listed here, and Jim's getting those first, and sponsored by Robbie and Jim Lilly of Holland.
So just to be clear, Yusuf Rabi is in Ann Arbor and is in Jeff Irwin's former seat. So I want to make that very clear that he sponsored this bill, or this or got the ball rolling on this package of bills,
Right.
which essentially is going to make Delta 8 a controlled substance that will be regulated in the exact same manner that our current Schedule 1 controlled substance THC, Delta 9, is regulated.
Here we go. So this is what this article says. The 8 bills, which are entitled House Bill 4517 and sponsored by Rep. Robbie and Rep. Jim Lilly of Holland, I think he's one of the more progressives in the state. Just kidding. Would revise the definition of tetrahydrocannabinoids, THC, more broadly, so that not only Delta-9 THC is covered, but any THC product the MRA determines has the potential for abuse. Now,
well, hold on. That translates to carte blanche access to the MRA to just declare any form of THC a controlled substance.
The use of the term here, as it's being referred to as, let me be very specific, as anything that the MRA determines has potential for abuse, is a definition for Schedule 1.
Right.
The idea that they're moving Delta-8 into and under the rubric of Delta-9 suggests, in the way this is written, is that they are locked in on Delta-9 being Schedule 1.
Yep.
Okay? Now, I thought that Yusuf Rabi had introduced a bill at some point to unschedule cannabis. So this makes no sense at all. And if you're going to unschedule them and then try to regulate, that's one thing. That's completely different. But don't re-emphasize the Delta-9 scheduling for THC. THC Delta-9 is Schedule 1, and then broaden it to include other cannabinoids into the Schedule 1. So what's really interesting here is this. Without any scientific valid point, without any studies to say that this is dangerous, they're prepared to make it Schedule 1.
Yes.
Yet, at the same time, they're selling Delta-9 and receiving tax dollars and calling it Schedule 1, and they don't have the kahunas to undo it from Schedule 1. And they refuse to. Without any reason, they can make Delta-8 Schedule 1.
Yep.
But for a million other reasons, they can't make Delta-9 not scheduled anymore. This is our lawsuit.
Yes.
This is what the legislature should be talking about.
But they're not. And the reason they're not, and there's two really good reasons, right? When we talk about a motive for a bill like this, there's only two possible motives that make sense to a normal person, right? The first motive is that there's a public health crisis that needs to be addressed, and people are afraid that their family or themselves are going to get sick. That does not apply here. There's zero data to support that there's these unscrupulous manufacturers that are making all these people sick. If the data exists, bring it. But I certainly have seen none of it. The other reason, which makes a lot more sense, is that you have people that have paid a shitload of money to get into a regulated system, and now they're upset because they have competition outside of the system that's completely legal.
Yeah.
So people really need to consider that. Chad, what do you think about that?
I think you hit the nail right on the head. There's already been a letter from the Michigan Cannabis Manufacturers Association to the state of Michigan addressing this, saying things like comparing the Delta-8 to spice, saying things like you don't have aspirin being produced in people's basements and sold to their neighbors. So that's where a lot of this stemmed from with the legislation in Lansing, was from this letter. I personally, as a business owner that retails Delta-8, can tell you that I picked it up in February. So we're talking, I've had it a short term, but it went from introducing it and explaining it to people to now if they pull it away and regulate it to the dispensaries, I'm going to lose, roughly about $1,500 a week in sales, which is quite a bit for my little smoke shop, but it's something that I've seen, in the beginning, people were skeptical about it, thinking, if it's at a smoke shop, it's not even going to work or whatever. If it's at a gas station, it isn't going to work. But then they see it at a fraction of the price compared to a Delta-9 cart in a dispensary, so they try it out, and they find out that it's not as intoxicating as a Delta-9 cart, but it's like we always call it a workable high. It's a lot mellower, takes away anxiety. If you eat the edibles, it's a different thing. It helps a lot of people with appetites and stuff and different things like that. But still, it's something that, in my opinion, is they see themselves as losing sales after they've invested a ton of money into their business, and they want to get these customers and these sales back. I see another thing as well under this is that if they consider Delta-8 any sort of THC cannabinoid, then they're going to get it into the dispensaries, and the state of Michigan's going to get a tax on it,
Yeah.
higher than what we would get out of the 6% that I put on it at a smoke shop.
All right, so I want to hear if either of you guys were present or observed some of the testimony. But before I do, let me make a couple comments. This kind of supports what Chad was just saying. The legislation, according to this article, which still needs tweaks, according to Rep. Robbie, enjoyed a warm reception at Monday's committee hearing, including testimony and support from Brisboe and the state's two leading cannabis trades associations.
Which associations were those,
Quote,
Michael?
Quote, we've got a regulated industry. Steve Linder, executive director of the Michigan Cannabis Manufacturing Association, told Grown in after the hearing.
Surprise.
We need
Surprise.
we need to stay ahead of anything that needs to be regulated. We don't want to ban it. It just has to go through a process or be tested. Spoken like a true legislature or industry.
Right. Well, it's Steve
Insider.
Linder, so he's had a little practice.
Here you go. Delta-9 tetrahydrocannabinol cannabinoid is a cannabinoid found in large, naturally occurring amounts in marijuana plants as the key ingredient that spurs cannabis cells. Delta-8, an isomer of Delta-9, or a molecule with the same number of atoms of each element but with a different atomic arrangement, is also naturally occurring in marijuana plants, but generally in trace amounts. To obtain significant amounts of Delta-8, cultivators need to distill the plant and refine the resulting distillate, emphasizing for Delta-8 over Delta-9. While Delta-8 has attracted a great deal of media attention, that other derivatives are coming down the pipeline, quote, it's almost certain that anything available on a commercial level right now is synthetically derived through an isomerization process of converting cannabidiol, Brisboe told the committee Monday. The agency is now engaging in research to evaluate research of the conversion process to produce commercially available products. This is a good effort by the MRI to align with what the MI Public Health Coast says, said Greg Michaud, recently spoken about on the Planet Green Trees episode number 513, which involved the discussion of former Michigan State Police Forensic Science Division scandal people that are now running labs in the state of Michigan. Yeah. But he's relied on here and quoted from as the CEO of Verides Laboratories, cannabis testing lab. Michaud and his two founding partners spent decades operating a forensic testing lab for the Michigan State Police, and says
with a 30% margin of error.
He's actually familiar with legislative efforts to keep up with illicit drug market. Before it was legal, you'd find a lot of these home scientists trying to synthesize cannabinoids, so it wasn't Delta-9, said Michaud. There are a lot of home chemists trying to skirt the federal schedule. Now we're starting to get some really sophisticated processing of this plant. It's unknown where it can take us. I think you're seeing more and more of that kind of sophistication, not just marijuana, but hemp as well. These chemists that are being employed to isolate specific cannabinoids like CBD, CBG, CBM, this is where the chemistry is getting to. When you heat it up, that's what converts it to Delta-9. The raw plant doesn't have Delta-9. That's why you burn it, said Michaud. Although the gray market has been aggressively marketing Delta-8 in Michigan, as well as Delta-10 in other states, Robin Schneider, executive director of Michigan Cannabis Industry, says her members are not interested in producing Delta-8 products. We're an industry that wants responsible regulation of any products that are being marketed as THC. Delta-8 doesn't reflect well on the larger industry, so it's not a matter of wanting to make it a business opportunity, said Schneider, who cautions that gray market chemists processing for product aids are far from safe. Can it pass the test? Will the labs need a different kind of equipment? There is much larger discussion after the bill passed to determine. All right, so by the way, they didn't mention this organization is one of the leading organizations.
We know what organization it is.
What I find interesting here is that...
yeah, thank God. Thank God.
You know, what happened with are we talking about the CBD market now? They're going to get into that too because it's a derivative.
Of course they are. Of course they are.
What's that?
All right. By the way, let's get some comments from. I think he's referred to in this article as the chemist. These chemists. Rob Robar, what do you say to any of this? Just kidding.
Chemist? I don't know about that.
Well, I'm saying that they're just like all these whoever's doing this stuff. These chemists with their in their lab with their beakers and their blowtorches or whatever. I don't know. But go ahead.
The whole thing is kind of a hard I've been kind of talking about it the last couple weeks, honestly, and I think I mentioned it on here the last time I kind of was on that this stuff, the conversations were starting to happen. So as a whole, I'm not surprised at all. I think nationally, I am somewhat at least glad to hear the terminology that it's not going to be banned. Now, the other comments, really, the last comment you had there, about that they're not interested in producing, and I'm not so sure about that. I see a lot of the partners who we have who, may or may not be sponsors of these bills, is seeing that people are coming in and looking for this, as Delta 8 as a whole. And I have always thought in generalities that probably within a few years, as more and more dispensaries are open across the nation, or within state, that you'll really see that will be pushed as being the but the primary source of people's access to cannabinoids, regardless of what they are. And as if CBD is going to be the next thing, maybe not, but I will say AMDAR just did reissue their statements about it not being able to be in food. So, and basically stating that all extracts are not to be in food.
Across the board?
Across the board.
Well, they're dangerous, Amanda.
Do they give a reason?
Dangerous.
Background on CBD edibles coming.
Do they give a reason for this?
They're dangerous, Steve.
Well, because nationally it's still considered, it's not been approved by the FDA to be a supplement, so there's that gray area that exists out there, which is really kind of what I think leads this, because somebody hasn't said it is yet. You know what I mean? And that's what they're holding on to, because the Farm Bill is written one way and everybody's trying to make sure they're in compliance with this new version of the Farm Bill, with all of its different steps. And as things change and as people discover these other minor cannabinoids and how to access them, we talked before Delta 10, we talked about, THCP, all these different
me.
ones that are potentially there, but there's not too much happening with what's leading the research in this. What's leading it?
This was like the testimony before the Congress in 1937, when they started using the word marijuana in the 1937 Tax Act, and that guy Dr. Woodward, who was the head of the AMA at the time, said, "What is marijuana? What are you betting? You're trying to make cannabis illegal? This is a medicine. What are you talking about? You have no idea." And then why we use it as medicine? Where's the bad? Didn't you watch Reefer Madness and all the science there?
Yeah,
I mean, there is no science. The idea here, the fear mongering, is not that Delta 8 is dangerous on its face. The argument is that it's becoming desirable, and people don't know what they're buying, right?
Whoa.
They know where it's coming from. Now, they don't say that about CBD, because
That's
you can
not
get
the argument.
It is.
I mean, it's their bullshit argument, but we all know where it's rooted, and it has to do as in the exact same spot that it was rooted in 1937.
Okay, I agree. It's not based on anything, but there seems to be, and the only way
there's more money control interest.
Yes, and you have this industry that's already regulated. Why not, get some more money to get more regulation? Yeah. But the point I'm trying to make here is this: it doesn't. If it competes and people can buy it in an unregulated market, it is competition. But what I'm noticing here, unlike they mentioned they mentioned CBD and CBN and CBG and all that stuff is coming next. Yeah, CBD, G, and M. But here we go. Yeah. This THC 8 is assumed to be a Schedule 1 type of drug. I mean, that the way they describe it.
Who?
I'm saying to you, the conversation here being represented is not based on any kind of long-term study. I mean, how long has this been identified? I mean, like in the public where there's people gathering information from, but they call it this. They say here that they want to have Delta 8 more broadly, so that not only Delta 9 THC is covered, but any THC product the MRA determines has a potential for abuse. So they're saying Delta 8 has a potential for abuse, which means they're determining that it's Schedule 1. And therefore, people need to get permission
It's totally
to buy
out
it.
of the scope of their authority.
Well, the other thing is this: if you don't understand something that's very strange here, and I guess I'll give credit to my friend Shiler Engel, and this was his biggest complaint, is that just as a matter of course, we all like Andrew Brismo. Maybe some people don't like him, but he's not an elected official.
No,
He's the head of. He's appointed as the agency head here. He doesn't make legislation,
he's a bureaucrat.
and
calling all
he's
the
not a
shots.
scientist either. And the representations here that it should be Schedule 1 seems rather strange.
No, and it's in his best interest to make sure that as much possible product is inputted into his regulated system. So
Yep.
the incentive here is completely off whack. And at the end of the day, what we're really saying is that even though in the state of Michigan that we have said marijuana is legal in all of its forms, that we are going to turn people like Chad and Rob into felons? Again, this is bullshit. This is exactly what we were fighting against, and they're doing it to us again. And I want everybody that's listening to look at who's in charge. At the end of the day, the party makes no difference. The game is the same.
Yep.
And this is bullshit.
I have to point this out because it's one of the biggest trick bags
I mean,
that's ever existed, and there's a quote in here that makes my case, just so you understand. If THC Delta 9 is the danger, right? The federal government's always, well, that's the danger in the plant, right? Because obviously if you've 0.3% or less, it's
Then it's
not
safe.
dangerous.
It's perfectly
safe,
safe. Right. Yep. Yep.
So understand that Mishad, who we talked about last week as being the police officers taking over the cannabis industry.
Yeah, 30% margin of error. Yeah.
He was the one that publicly stated that we'll never forget that at the time 40% of the lab, when he was the head of the MSP Forensic Science Division, 40% of the budget was used to test marijuana. That's why they're not getting to the rape kits. Maybe legalization will help.
Yeah.
And understand that he's saying this, that has got to be in their department the most resources used for any one particular type of testing, which means it translates that it makes enough sense for them to test that material, validate it for whatever it is, and then use it in court to convict people where it goes on all the time.
Yep.
Now, what he's saying here, and admitting there's a long history, and this has always been, understand this phenomenon in Michigan goes on all over the state, and the scientific procedures that take place to determine whether or not it is marijuana or not are usually the Ducanois-Levine test,
Yeah, where is it?
or the narc test, which involves you dropping the material into a certain pouch and breaking the chemicals, which include, I think methane is one of them, a highly intensive heated chemical. Now, the reason why they do this is because only when the plant is heated, either by way of a fire, some kind of smoking above, so it creates a combustion, does the plant, cannabis sativa L, become or begin to reflect Delta 9, the illegal substance. As a marijuana plant sits there, as a bag of marijuana cannabis sits before somebody,
Right.
it does not have THC in it. In other words, when it's received by the lab,
That's not completely true.
it's got an
It's definitely under 0.3%.
No.
Oh,
I'm
yes.
Listen,
the
what I'm saying.
THCA degrades over time, Michael. There's definitely THC in that plant.
There's THCH. The hydrogen remains on it.
THCA, right.
When it combusts,
but over
the
time-
hydrogen molecule drops off.
Yes.
So if you get fresh marijuana,
I
it does
understand.
not contain the pure THC that makes it illegal.
It's just in a very small amount. Very small.
Very, very small.
See?
If so, it doesn't become
Marijuana.
until they
Right,
drop it
yeah.
in here and get the chemical
That's
reaction that breaks off the hydrogen molecule, which produces the reaction that of THC. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it could be cannabinoids, any other cannabinoids, not THC. But my point is that the field testing takes plant material that doesn't represent on its face without manipulated in some way
without a chemical
THC
reaction.
with THC,
Yeah,
right? THCH, the hydrogen molecules, and this goes on every day in every lab across the country, that the plant itself, as it stands there, does not contain THC to the extent that they could make the case. There has to be a manipulation of the plant in some way. I mean, it's remarkable that this goes on. I mean, if you think about it, the plant as it sits there is not illegal because it doesn't have the dangerous capacity. It's not going to hurt you as it sits there. It's just a plant. Put a little heat on it, manipulate it, bam, Delta 9. It's going to kill you, according to the government. But this is interesting that Mashad points this out. He says here that THC is one of those cannabinoids in the plant itself. The acid cannabinoid is called THCA. Okay, when you heat it, that's what converts it to Delta 9. Is it A or H? I think there's an H in there too. The raw plant doesn't have Delta 9. That's why you burn it. There you go. The raw plant doesn't have Delta 9.
Who said that?
Mashad.
No.
It's quoted in here. He's saying this. He's making
He's
it.
wrong. There's a small.
Traits, but it's the basic science, yeah.
See?
But okay, but I'm just saying, like, do you understand, like, if someone gets a bunch, they say, oh, you got 10,000 pounds of marijuana, and we tested it and it tested positive for marijuana. They manipulated it.
Oh, I get all of that. And I'm not arguing any of that. I just think that the idea that there's no THC in the plant is a little far-fetched.
Let's have the second cup of the dessert tea. It's about that time.
Yeah.
I mean, the second sip, right? You know, like we're doing our
No, it's my third.
Passover.
Yeah.
The goddess says, lift the cup of dessert tea.
Dessert tea.
Just kidding.
Dessert tea.
All right. So
Esteban.
let's step back. What do you two guys say? What's going on? So does anyone watch the hearings? Who testified? What kind of clown show was it? Please.
I didn't see any of the hearings myself. I was alerted to them by another person in the industry who sent me a text that said it was happening on Saturday. And just kind of, we've been chatting a little bit about different things, but again, it's
Tuesday.
As far as what it's happened since then, I just know it's just more discussions at this point. But it is going to happen, you know. So
Unreal.
it's been,
You got to think that any act that they do here is kind of antagonistic to the vote of the people. The other side is that the legalization of marijuana that gives them this regulated system was from the people, not intended to hurt people. Right? We create create freedoms for people to engage in this activity, and also create a regulated system for this specific thing. It doesn't grant them this. You know, they didn't do anything to. They're by virtue of default forced to do these things, and now they're in control of all the ideas. This is insane. Chad, what's going on? What do we want to say to this industry that seems to be evolving? At least they've cleaned up their terms of art. They're using the word gray market now. That seems to be a little
way better.
little less.
You know,
I love gray.
I think a lot of it's absurd. I think that, you know, there could be some standards applied to it, you know, but I don't think it necessarily needs to be regulated on the retail side all the way to dispensaries. You know, and it's like I've had a couple conversations with some other people in, you know, the vape shop, smoke shop / you know, industry there. And, you know, our question is, where is it going to stop? You know, because we've already got the Delta 8, Delta 10 conversation going right now on the state level, as well as other states. Federal level, we've got this, you know, potential ban on menthol cigarettes, as well as a ban on flavored cigars, which the flavored
What the hell is going on?
Yeah.
a lot of people, you know, they obviously those are used to roll blunts with cannabis. And the thing that you're going to be left with is hemp wraps, basically. And the next question is, well, you know, hemp, you know, are they going to start regulating any type of thing with cannabinoids, CBN or CBD or G or anything like that? Because a lot of these wraps are infused with CBG and stuff now. You know, are they going to put that into the dispensaries as well, you know, in the next year to 18 months? Like, where's this stuff going to
You'll see
stop?
flavored wraps go away. All flavorings are going to go away as far as things that are already buyable, consumable.
I mean, what is going? The world is in complete crisis
That's
for the
right.
past year and a half.
Yep.
And in Michigan, we're talking about legislating piss,
Oh, it's
billboards,
yeah.
and Delta 8 THC derived from hemp. That's priority in Michigan.
That's right.
Very proud of our legislature. They all need to be fired.
Yep.
We should have a mechanism
And
in
how
place
many
where we fire
people
them.
in the Senate voted against the piss bill, Steve?
One.
Yeah.
One.
Jesus.
I tell you what, I'm gonna start the Piss and Billboard Super PAC, and I'm coming after these fucking politicians who vote for this silly shit, who bring up this silly shit. They put it in hearings. Like I said, the world's in crisis, and this is what they're worried about: Delta 8 derived from hemp that causes no harm.
There's, like you were saying, like this when it comes to like the smoking aspect of things. I mentioned a while back, the whole cart thing. These are going to be very, very hard to come by.
Yeah, you were saying that a few weeks ago.
In meaning that, like, literally, we tried to purchase some recently, and for another project, and it was like, nope, can't get them. And it's and this is from a major retailer in the Detroit area with them.
Well, they get them all from China, I think, is where they all come from.
Yeah, well, that's where they can shut all that down. If you can shut it down at the import stations, then you're going to shut it down.
Then we just have to find somebody who can tool a factory to make carts here. I think that's the new business.
Well, that's kind of what you have to do almost.
Like,
and there are
gold,
a few.
a brick of gold right there.
Yeah.
Every cart.
Make carts. We should make carts.
There's going to be a definite demand for it, and it'll all have to pass testing, I'm sure, and all that kind of stuff. But the fact that they labeled those particular carts as a tobacco item, empty ones are labeled as a tobacco item now. So that's what's silly about the whole thing. It's like,
it's all silly.
You can't even. They say that you may be able to claim that not for tobacco use, but even that's not probably going to work as a whole when it comes to shipping it. And like Chad can attest to, it may, more people are going to come into the stores to buy vape products because they can't buy it online now. So that might bolster the brick and mortars a bit. But there's a whole lot of places that don't have access to this stuff normally. And this is just nicotine products. I mean, to me, it's like I don't love, cigarettes or anything like that. I used to vape back in the day. It helped me stop smoking cigars. But I'm a harm reduction person, and I don't understand anybody who wants to clamp down on technology that
I know it. It's so
people.
silly. It's these damn politicians have no clue about what's going on in the real
land of the free, home of the brave.
And they all need to be fired.
Conversation goes, it's a hard one because it's, we're looking at this as my company goes, and it's not our only product. That's the one benefit that we have, but it's the most popular one right now, obviously, and the topicals as well, but the gummies are really it.
The gummies are great. All their products are great.
It's hard, but we also have to address that and pivot. And I've already in discussions and trying to arrange to enter the legal market, the regulated legal market, and the THC side, and kind of already headed that way anyways. But this just kind of pushes us off the springboard there. And as I have these conversations with some of these people, my company isn't really necessarily looking at doing the most banging high THC products, especially, right off. We want to, basically what we're doing on this side, but never worry about being hot, as I say. I just make products that can have THC in them and just make, have to bang hard on THC, but make it work. So that's kind of what.
Right.
Weren't there some additional discussions that was in regards to the amount that you can have 0.3 or 0.5 at harvest? Mm-hmm. Wasn't there some recent discussion about that?
Yeah, well, they basically made it so that it's still 0.3, but then the margin of error of not being considered a felony or that you're trying to do something bad or however. I mean, you get.
No, I mean, like, I think the MDARD or they put
Mm-hmm.
A bulletin or something that said that the crops that are being planted this year, last year they made them just burn it or get rid of it or whatever.
Oh yeah, no, you can remediate it down now.
Yeah, so now.
I mean, there's lots of options now, so that's a good thing on the hemp side,
right?
For sure.
Right.
It keeps them from having to worry about that. The biggest game is going to happen right now is that if they take edibles away.
Yeah.
If they take edibles away, you are talking about the number one selling item of CBD products. You know, it's what everybody takes, it's what they prefer. Some may take capsules, but as a whole, and maybe that'll survive because it's more of a supplement. But if the FDA or whatever doesn't claim this as being available as being a supplement, you're still technically not really supposed to be able to do that.
That's the highest all of this should be.
If we have these
Supplement.
things in the grocery stores and the corner stores and all that stuff, and they say, okay, we're not going to let you put it in food. You're going to have to pull that. What do you guys think? How's that going to pan out?
I don't know, to be honest with you. I mean, it just depends on the store owners are making it. To be honest with you, CBD isn't selling as well for a lot of people. You know, the regular people who are using it as a whole are regular users, but the new market, I think, is somewhat different because of things of not people really understand. Even Delta 8, you know, I've never sold it as a, you know, or pitch it as being something that's an intoxicant, even though I guess it is. I know I understand what the terminology is, but it's, you know, people get relief from it. And the fact that it controls nausea so much better than Delta 9 does, it seems to for people, is something that it's like, this is a real molecule that we should really embrace.
Absolutely.
We should talk about it more in the medical side, and maybe it's just that way. So as a company, you know, I'm trying to make these things, you know, with my partners to be able to pivot and enter the space properly and be reputable. You know, we've done full panel, DEA certified full panel testing on all of our products for a long time now. And so when they bring up the safety issue, it's like, yeah, I'm sure there are some unscrupulous people out there. But making sure that people consume safe, legal things that still fall within the 0.3 total threshold is something we've always really been vigilant about. And now you have these conversations where Delta 8 can't be in it at all. It's like, well, is it total THC or is it Delta 8, Delta 9? Is it what? If it's total THC, why are we having the conversation? You know, in my opinion. But it's just, you know, things are changing. And being a part of it is, you know, but will say that the things with hemp are leading a lot of this research into cannabinoids because of the cheap, you know, the lower costs to be able to process that much material. You know, that's what's leading to all these real more discoveries. Obviously, they discovered Delta 8 a couple years ago, but they weren't able to really do it well because they didn't have enough source to be able to do it in any capacity. So now you're looking at cannabis people looking at that. You know, I just don't want to see those molecules go away for the sake of, you know, just controlling it, you know.
Yeah. So on another note, don't you have a cookbook coming out?
Oh yeah. I kind of, one of the things we have always, since we're a big hemp flower company and kind of always work with that as a item, a while back I decided to kind of come up with an idea of something to provide to our retailers and just various people to help understand them how to take strains and fuck with it. You know, so I have a really good writer who helped me out. Her name is Amy Hogan. She's out of the East Coast and does some really good stuff, but kind of helped me bring it all around our strains, you know, so strain specific recipes based around something. So we've got a bunch of those coming, and
I like it.
Kind of just giving people a different idea of how to work with this, because in all honesty, you know, if they do go down with things like no edibles,
Yep, exactly.
hemp flower is the thing that I think will probably outlast most everything. You know, as weird as it seems, that it's a raw flower. It can be done in any different thing. You know, it just, so kind of giving that knowledge to people is what we've really tried to do with the cookbook.
Very
Little different spin on the thing, and a good informational piece that's, you know, promotional yet.
What's the name of the book?
Oh, it's just a complete guide to cookbooking, really. It's just the hemp cookbook.
Okay.
Well, when you
It's just,
get
we have
that,
it available on our website
Yeah.
right now for download, and then we're just going to have them available for like anybody who's buying flour. And I have some other ideas too. I would really kind of like to expand on some ideas that if I say them here, I'll probably give away some stuff.
trade secrets.
Just trying to, my head always thinks 2 steps ahead, like I tell everybody, and it's like, well, if this goes down, what do we do here?
Yeah.
You know, and those types of things. I always knew Delta 8 would be an issue down the road, just because anytime somebody feels something off of it, the government's going to want to say something.
Yeah, for sure.
But I'm also willing to, as a company, do what we have to do to make it these products to still exist, and it's not a thing. I'm glad. That's why I'm glad at least they're not saying just complete ban. It does suck because retail wise, it really limits, basically everybody who's really discovered this benefit and access point. It limits access. It limits, all these different things nationally, state by state. It's happening. It's every day. It's another one. Ban, ban, ban. And the ones that probably aren't are going to be the recreational, or medical markets that are legal. They are going to probably be the ones that do this thing. And I think there's talk about it in Oregon already. So they're doing it.
Well, maybe we should regroup and come back and talk about some Canna Bumps.
Oh, God.
All right.
Oh, God.
Yeah. It's going to be a good discussion.
Well,
Tune in.
Here we go. All right. Well, you're listening to Planet Green Trees.
All right.
The Planet Green Trees Show.
Join the Michigan Medical Marijuana Association today. MichiganMedicalMarijuana.org. The MMMA is focused on the well-being and safety of medical marijuana patients. The MMMA site provides the most comprehensive and up-to-date news on legal issues, politics, research, cultivation, as well as the various strange products and methods of cannabis use. Come join the discussion with the most knowledgeable and passionate advocates in Michigan today. MichiganMedicalMarijuana.org.
I was upper middle class, I had a yard of carpet grass. Worked backhoe 9 to 5 and paid my union dues. But the chef came one day and he took it all away. Left me without anything to lose. They forfeited my car, they found some sugar in a jar. Told me it was probably suspicion of a crime. The other day I saw it being driven by the law, and them boys in back was gonna do some time. Well, forfeiture today, Lord, what a funny way to pay. Keep the peace so all our kids can go outside and play, without a cotton picking thing to lose. I got the Deep East Texas task force blues. Took my minibar and then they seized my VCR. Well, it could be misused to watch a nasty video. They took away my kitchen all the time. My wife was bitching that it wasn't nothing but oregano. They said my herbal tea might cause a sinful ecstasy. Told me it could only lead to doing something hard. Took my ass to jail, they took my wife, paid my bail, took my double wide down to the county yard. Forfeiture today, Lord, what a funny way to pay. Keep the peace so all our kids can go outside and play, without a cotton picking thing to lose. I got the Oakland County task force blues. Without a cotton picking thing loose, I got them Oakland County task force blues. Yeah.
I am Earl from G3 Cannabis Therapy Network, and you are watching Planet Green Trees, the original and #1 podcast in Michigan for all things cannabis and legal news.
Planet Green Trees Show.
Join the Michigan Medical Marijuana Association today, michiganmedicalmarijuana.org. The MMMA is focused on the well-being and safety of medical marijuana patients. The MMMA site provides the most comprehensive and up-to-date news on legal issues, politics, research, cultivation, as well as the various strange products and methods of cannabis use. Come join the discussion with the most knowledgeable and passionate advocates in Michigan today. michiganmedicalmarijuana.org.
I am Earl from G3 Cannabis Therapy Network, and you are watching Planet Green Trees, the original and #1 podcast in Michigan for all things cannabis and legal news.
An important and historical farm crop in American agriculture is returned after having been classified as a controlled substance and illegal. On December 20th, 2018, the President signed the Farm Bill, also known as the Agriculture Improvement Act of 2018, into law. The signing of the act was great news for the hemp industry, which amended the definition of marijuana in the Federal Controlled Substances Act. Hemp is now defined as the plant, Cannabis sativa L, and any part of the plant, growing or not, with less than 0.3% THC concentration on a dry basis. The plant itself is no longer a controlled substance. Hemp is one of the most versatile plants on earth. From clothing, fiber, paper, building materials, hempcrete, biofuels, CBD, and medical uses, it has been a part of America's industry for over 200 years. Even the United States Constitution was drafted on hemp paper. The time is now. If you're thinking of getting in the farming or processing of hemp, contact our global experts, legal, and consultation teams to make sure that you're on the right road when you venture into the new hemp industrial revolution. Michigan Hemp Industries has been a leader and advocate for the return of the hemp industry, so come be a part of the new revolution in agriculture in Michigan.
Bill Schuette led the charge against medical marijuana, and even after the will of the voters was decided and the support was enormous, he still continued to fight against the will of the voters, keeping patients from the medicine that they need. So I think it's important that we all speak up on what we think about this initiative. But when the voters have their say, their will must stand.
That's tomorrow, and that is it for us today. And we will leave you with a... I can't do it. We'll do it live.
Okay.
We'll do it live. Fuck it. Do it live. I'll write it, and we'll do it live. And thing sucks.
In 5, 4, 3.
That's tomorrow, and that is it for us today. I'm Bill O'Reilly. Thanks again for watching. We'll leave you with Sting and a cut off his new album. Take it away.
And now back to more Planet Green Trees.
Alrighty, we're back. Thanks for
back.
staying with us through that break. Episode 519, you're listening to Planet Green Trees. I'm Michael Komorn of Komorn Law PLC. Just to remind everyone, the title of the show and also the new policy at Planet Green Trees is that we are rescinding the no shirt, no shoes policy for the summer months only.
Right.
All right, we're back. So let's get to the other topic here.
What about pants?
As long as you're wearing a mask, I don't care.
Yeah.
Just kidding. So we talk about Canna Bumps. We got Biden in his too busy.
He's too busy.
Canna Bumps.
Canna Bumps. All right. What can only be described as a marketing not genius move.
Yeah, I don't know what the hell they're thinking on this one.
March 3rd, 2020, out of Leafy here, a new cannabis product made waves this past week, and not in a good way. Canna Bumps, a snortable powdered cannabis concentrate packaged to look like cocaine, caught the eye of a few industry leaders.
Yeah.
They tweeted the reaction pretty much a chorus of so gross, and by the end, Weed Twitter was piling on. Subreddit, Weed picked up the powdery product and continued the conversation. The reaction was mixed. A few defended the product. Some people love snorting stuff, and this is a cool idea to get an instant high without carrying a cartridge pen, which runs the risk of a felony. And this stuff is easy to dispose of. If it was economical, I'd buy the shit out of it. But most, that's not my quote, that's someone. But most reactions went into the so fucking dumb, holy shit bucket. Is this legal? Manufacturer isn't talking. Canna Bumps is made by THC Living, a licensed California edibles manufacturer whose product line was previously limited to THC-infused lemonade and pain relief topicals. It's listed as 600 milligrams THC concentrate, but marketed as an edible. With 600 milligrams THC per package, THC Living appeared to legally position Canna Bumps as a concentrate. California allows up to 100,000 milligrams THC per package for concentrates. Edibles are limited to 100 THC per package. But then the company in its marketing materials clearly pitched the product to consumer as an edible. Have a great time with your cannabis with our novel cannabis concentrate. Canna Bumps are exactly what they sound like. Cannabis concentrate intended to be devoured through the nose, ingested straightforwardly.
Devour it might.
It's not snorted. It's devoured through the nose. Okay.
Or added to your food and then snorted through your nose. And that seems straight up illegal. Did they pull the product? By the end of the week, the industry-wide backlash and our legal peril appeared to have an effect. The product could no longer be found on THC Living's brand. Pages were either on Leafly or Weed Meds. By the end of the weekend, Canna Bumps could no longer be found. All right, that led some to speculate on Reddit that the whole thing was one big joke. It's fake. It doesn't exist. Unfortunately, it appears the product does exist. Late Monday afternoon, a law firm representing THC Living released a statement to Leafly that included this explanation. Isn't that interesting? They could have faded into the midnight with the question of, who was that masked man?
Yeah.
Where did it go? What, did it ever exist? Wow. Was that an Onion story? But no, the lawyer comes forward and says, wait a second, if anyone really thought if there should be any ill will towards our clients, let me be unequivocal. That should be.
Yeah, and let me tell you,
because
it was definitely their product.
It was definitely their product because... Yeah, it was not only their product, it was their idea. They endorsed the whole thing, and I know everyone was thinking that like it was a joke, but no, this is real.
No, they're for real.
A few months ago, our clients was approached by a third party, not named, that sought to utilize our client's proprietary information in the creation of Canna Bumps product. As soon as our client learned more about the product, it took the temperature of its customers and those in the industry to gauge how they felt about Canna Bumps. Because of its own concerns, those expressed by consumers and the misgivings of those in the industry, our clients made the decision to terminate any licenses, blah, 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 blah. So let me say something. Whoever this living, what is it, THC Living brand, if they don't recognize the inherent problems with snorting THC in the cannabis industry, and they need to get feedback from other stakeholders, customers, or what have you, and told what a stupid idea it is. I mean, I don't think much can be said about THC Living brand's decisions.
No, they clearly don't get it.
The lawyers should look for new work also.
Yeah, but I have a feeling based on these silly decisions that lawyer's probably pretty busy. So,
right. We should. All right. So, what does everybody think about this? First of all, I don't know. Is that an enjoyable way to just? I mean, I don't know. I mean,
well, let's set the stage for what it looks like.
Sure.
So what happens is you get this package, and it comes in a box, and it has the snortable THC in a vial with a spoon. So
it comes with a spoon?
Snort it.
That little...
And
it does! Oh my God!
It comes with a credit card type thing to smash it if need be.
Holy
So the only thing it does not include is the straw. And that's because they're eco-friendly. And they don't want the straws to go into the turtle's nose.
Oh my God. But
they're a California-based company.
But the
Keep that in
spoon's
mind.
okay. The spoon might go into the turtle's nose as well.
Right,
wow, there's a lot of things really wrong with this. First of all, that packaging is, other than the writing of Canna and Bumps, I mean, that is what
Can you just imagine
I've
someone walking
seen
down the street like
in
doing
pictures
bumps
of
on
evidence of what cocaine is.
Getting ripped.
We'll leave it at that. And the not all right. So, but okay. So let's think about this for a second, and how we can discuss this with some kind of outcome that sounds meaningful. First of all, is this something that would sell to people? Well, let's make the case. Why is the cannabis community so outraged by this? Why is this a stupid idea? Amanda.
Well, I just personally think it's just, I think that it's marketing to the wrong group, I guess. And it's really just all in the way that it's packaged too. And it's kind of the same thing with, you know, the edibles and how they were packaged to be bright, and the state was concerned about them appealing to a certain audience.
Kids,
well,
right?
yeah.
Child
This
appealing.
is just, yeah. So this to me, I just would not personally ingest cannabis that way. And I just thought, you know, also the packaging, that it was kind of targeted to the wrong group.
Okay, all right. Jim,
Yeah.
first, what are your thoughts on this new method of ingestion? What do you think next? Do you think of IVs for
No.
oil?
No, and God, no. And you know what? At the end of the day, if these people want to sell their Canna Bumps, I mean, fucking let them. I don't give a shit, quite frankly. They're going to go out of business. I've never heard of anybody wanting to snort cannabis powder in my life.
Guess what?
It's
They're
novelty.
out. They're
Right.
out. They're closed.
Yeah, exactly. So, whatever.
So
I mean,
what does that tell you?
Exactly.
It's probably got to be cut with something, doesn't that, in
I'm
order
sure
to make it
and
fluffy?
no one's gonna buy it, and then they're gonna
Buy
lose
it one time.
That's right, and then they're gonna lose a shitload of money, and the problem will solve itself. This is another example of, yeah, it's. I mean, we all think it's a stupid idea. Whatever, fucking let them do it, and they're gonna fail, and when they do, you know, they'll move on to something else and maybe be successful. But this is not gonna be it.
What if it turns out that in this method only, it causes both addiction and could potentially kill you?
Well, you know,
I'm just kidding. That's impossible. I'm kidding. I'm
even
joking.
if it could, I mean,
I don't
whatever.
know what's in it. What is it?
Well, it's got to pass some testing, we're assuming. I mean, look at this. So they
The
sell.
license thing.
Right. They sell. Is it? I'm assuming that it was. It's California
what state
approved.
Well, yeah, what state
California
is
approves it.
licensed with Canna Bumps?
California. It's got the California seal of approval right there.
Oh my God!
It would have been okay. They were passing it up. Well, let me ask you this: what's the difference of the quote-unquote diamonds or those other concentrated white rocks of crystallized pureness of a substance that would be broken? You know, like that's not that far away from. That's what that is. It's probably got something mixed.
Maybe it's just isolate.
People aren't snorting the diamonds. Not that I'm aware of.
Not until we planted the seed. Now the people should be.
Snort diamonds.
Just kidding.
Here's the other
Chad
thing. Is
and
it activated?
What?
Is it activated?
Good point. Has it been decarboxylated?
I don't know.
Well,
what's the
know.
temperature of the What's the temperature of the inside of the nose? That's an important thing because it makes.
That's why I think that it's kind of like isolate. It's just like THC A.
Yeah,
the dome.
which is great, but like you just mentioned, if it's, if it's not being decarbed at all, if you snort it, is it really doing anything?
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, obviously there's TCA, there is benefit, but
it's not getting you high, quote unquote.
Which it's legal. I mean, technically, all these terminologies that we just talked about earlier.
Right. What he's saying is this: as I said on the plant itself, because that's really what the plant itself is. It gets to you. It's not carboxylated. Only by being carboxylated does the THC on itself become, does the THC that's on the plant become delta 9?
Right.
There's got to be carboxylation. So the question was, does the distillate, which this is, they're making distillate, which they can make both carboxylated and decarboxylated, right? Is that right, Rob? And
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's
right.
the thing.
So if it's if it's not decarboxylated, and it still retains its THCA, it doesn't have the. And by ingesting it, you're just getting that molecule. It does not create the euphoria associated with the THC, delta 9. And then the question would be, why would somebody, it would be like, I don't know, like snorting the cutting agent of the coke, if there's an analogy there, I guess. But, yeah, that's a good point. I mean, would that be a method of ingestion for a medical purpose? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That doesn't seem like that would be a method. And
well, they're not pitching it that way, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Right. Well,
and to jump from being a topical company to producing a product like that, I'm going to go with this is also a marketing promotional thing. Like,
Sure.
It's not a well thought out one.
Right.
But as somebody who does branding and stuff like that, and some people love the shock value of things, and they love that. You know, it brings a whole lot of eyes to that web page for a day or two. But
Canna Bumps is the new brand.
Well, it's okay. So you guys on the Zoom, tell Rob, go ahead. So I know you're discussing it from a branding perspective. In the chat, I want to hear from you as well. But I mean, from a perspective of who it may appeal to. Number one, what are your thoughts? And number two, as a method of ingestion, is there any value here versus the potential risk of membrane damage in the nasal passages or whatever may happen from?
Seems like you would mess up your snaz.
Seems like
I would figure it would probably do something as a whole, long term. As far as the application goes, I really don't know because I've never even really thought about it. Like most of us, we're all kind of like looking at it like, huh? Why would you? But then I also think a lot of times, sometimes we don't always think about the ways of Justin. But this way it's pitched and marketed, no, it's a short-term thing. In my opinion, it's like somebody who's just trying to make a quick buck off of something versus they know it's going to go right away. Just kind of mention, or do they think it's going to be a long-term play for their company? Probably not. But it brings a lot of eyes. It brings a lot of things. It can maybe get you to sell whatever. Is it good? No. But it's also, you see a lot going on right now with Nestle or whoever manufactures Skittles. Just going after the companies doing that right now. Anything that markets, and I hate infringing stuff because of what I do in branding. I've done my whole life to not do original ideas. It takes a long time. It's concepts. It's looks. It's feels. Branding isn't about just putting out a product and making something that somebody buys. Because you can make $1 doing that, but do you want to make long-term dollar? With a brand, the cannabis thing, they put it out. They just change the label on something else, and meanwhile they just create another product, and move on. Is it hype? It could be. I mean, to be honest with you, because the meme world is out there. It didn't look like really a meme thing, like a Photoshop creation that all these guys create.
It's real.
And is somebody always going to try to do shit like that? Probably. But it's also up to the states and stuff like that to maybe cut that off, because if somebody got all the way through packaging, it's something more than somebody just ignoring it. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, we didn't think about it or whatever. They got it all along. They knew exactly how they were going to put it together, because packaging isn't cheap. Let me say that. So when you're doing something like that, it takes a lot of thought and effort. So I think what they're doing is just simply trying to make a quick buck. And unfortunately, there's going to be a lot of that in this space. Especially on both sides. In the hemp industry, it's everywhere. It's rampant. I think in cannabis, it's maybe not as rampant, but then, there's always going to be somebody who's trying to skirt things and do whatever.
Yeah.
What do you think, Chad? Would you have those in would they sell? You have
I wouldn't
a bit.
even. If somebody walked into my store trying to sell that, I get people coming in, wholesale reps and stuff like that. I wouldn't even give them the time of day. I'd tell them to go right back out the door they walked in.
Right.
Literally, when I saw that, the first thing, I shared it obviously on my, Facebook, and there was a little bit of a conversation there, and some of the things that jumped out at me in the comments were, this is just begging for more regulation was one of the things I saw. The thing that I first thought was, after all these years of trying to push against the stigma and warm up to people that thought marijuana would, make you, into an addict and anything else, the reefer madness crowd, so to speak. Now, as soon as we start, getting stores out there and showing them that the sky isn't going to fall, we come out with something like this that just spits in the face of everything we just did. And I kind of find it interesting that it would, if it's gone now pretty quickly, obviously, but if it would have stayed out, it would have been interesting to see what happened, because this is already, not with THC been done, but a few years back, there was a product that came out, and I forget the name exactly. I want to say it was like Coco Loco or something like that. But it was a snuff, and it was like cocoa powder, like from chocolate, basically.
Yeah,
Steve, you gotta get it.
Yeah, and it was like caffeine. It got you, a little bit of a rush. And again, because of the marketing, because it was something like cocaine, so to speak, or simulating it, it didn't last. I mean, the FDA freaked out about that stuff, and so I think we would have seen probably something similar to that. But then maybe not, because there's a lot of money in this industry, and the people that, as long as they can regulate it, get a sin tax, whatever, then they probably would allow it to go.
Yeah.
But I still wouldn't
Good way
sell
to
it.
say it. Sin
Yeah,
tax.
no. It's bad branding on lots of aspects and lots of bad publicity for lots of different things. And again, it's
listen,
people don't think about.
No, and listen, I like the discussion. Let me play devil's advocate a little bit, and I think it's fair to say, like, who cares how people want to ingest cannabis, right?
Exactly.
And people,
First and foremost,
Who gives a shit?
so, but the issue of the branding, whether it's a good idea or bad idea, you know what? I guess. Well, let me say this. The idea that it pitches to the cocaine crowd, I think there's an initial knee-jerk reaction because.
I've never heard the cocaine crowd saying, "Gee, I wish I could snort marijuana."
Right. Right.
That's true.
In fact, there's an argument that the two drugs really are not related. They're two different types of crowds, right? In fact, one even, just stereotypically, culturally speaking, you got like the. I guess it permeates throughout all cultures, really, but kind of like cannabis, but not usually the same kind of scene when it's culturally viewed. It's not like,
even if it is, I still never heard it.
All right, fine. All right, so I think we also have to be careful because one of the things with all kinds of potential medicines, for example, or things that people want to put into their body, is what method of ingestion works best, fastest. People will put under the tongue a sublingual. Absorption. There's obviously the nasal cavity. There's through the lungs. There's eating things through the bloodstream. Each of them has a different effect in terms of getting the brain into the bloodstream.
Suppository.
And of course, that's what I was going to say. So no one cares about that, right? And if this is something that for somebody, now what's interesting is this, And a lot of the other reasons for ingestion are based upon the idea that some people don't want to smoke, or they may have a medical condition that they can't smoke, some kind of lung.
Doctor said
ailment.
they should snort it, right?
No. But I'm saying to you that, but there's also always been that argument that, obviously smoking anything creates lung cancer, just like cigarettes, but there's no data to support this. In fact, the doctor. I'll think of his name in a second, but the guy he's like Cal Berkeley, spent his entire life federally funded to try to show that smoking marijuana caused damage to the lungs. He wasn't able to do it.
It's something.
And said it may even help people that used to be long-term cigarette smokers in improving their lung capacity, et cetera. So he's never been think of it. It's coming. Okay. But anyway, so before we rule out that this may be dangerous or damaging to the nasal membranes or whatever that are associated with cocaine, who knows? I'm not, maybe some other federally funded.
I don't think any of us care.
I don't think anyone cares.
If people want to snort, personally, I don't give a shit what you want to snort. That's your problem.
But
That's not my problem.
It's interesting because I think, the cannabis. Okay, like this is where this really I think is. So the illegality of cannabis has always been associated with all illegal drugs, right? Because you had to go and get them from an illegal place of ill repute, right? It's only there that you have the choices of this, that, and the other.
You go to the dope man.
You go to the dope man. What dope do you want? You want your heroin, you want your meth, you want your cocaine, but the only reason someone may be going to the dope man is because it's illegal.
Right.
And there's no other source to get it. There's no caregiver or what have you. Yep. So, and I think that part of the, one of the ways in which cannabis was more acceptable in the mainstream versus medical and even to legalization was the, acceptance of it medically speaking, and also that it's to avoid the illegality that's associated with the illegal drugs. And if you move it over here, but you know what? Just by making cannabis legal, it doesn't make the world a better place in and of itself.
Right.
You still have the war on drugs, stupid policies, arresting people for these things that are more of a public health issue. And if you want to debate it, fine, but don't rely on the war on drugs as a success story.
It's the most abject failure in the history of the world.
As a reason to keep doing it because it's not working. But if you want to argue that there should be a different approach taken, you know,
everybody knows what the different approach is.
Well,
but people don't have the balls.
But I'm
to
saying,
do it.
I'm saying, in the debate along the way, I don't think it's hard to carry cocaine, heroin, and MDMA on your back advocating for, cannabis legalization. It's just hard to. You know what I mean?
Not. It's really not.
In one swing?
It's not. I don't think it is. I mean, I think.
I think
this is coming from someone that doesn't use any of those drugs. That, at the end of the day, if you want to use drugs, that is your problem. That is not my problem.
Yes.
And the fact that our country treats it as a public safety issue instead of a public health issue is the most ridiculous bullshit I've ever heard in my life.
I agree. Listen, we're talking about the concepts of incrementalism,
Oh, I get it.
And even in the issue of marijuana, even on the issue of marijuana.
But even the drug issue, most people, when it's explained to them in those terms, they get it. And the fact that, for whatever reason, our country can't unify behind that is beyond my fucking, my intellect cannot.
I mean, Jim, there's a history to this, and I was just pointing it out in that, one, you have Richard Nixon creating a policy of the war on drugs, which was intended to divide our country. You had the people that were afraid of the other ones, which are the war protesters, the psychiatrists, and the, civil rights movement. It was them and everybody else.
Yep.
And by creating the war on drugs, you now had an enemy on one side and a reason to go after them.
Yep.
And this has been built into our culture year after year as they devastated neighborhood after neighborhood and torn apart families, just as the Schaefer report predicted would happen if you made it a Schedule 1. And it was for all drugs, and I agree. And they created this thing. So now we're 40, 50 years into it, brainwashing this culture that we've lived in. No one asked the question, why did it...
biggest scam in the history of the world.
Right, the best, why did it become illegal in the first place? If you think about,
We know why. We know why it was illegal, and it had nothing to do with drugs. It had to do with the racist predication that these laws were based on. These drugs were illegal.
But listen,
for a long time before Nixon ever showed up on the scene. The only time we started enforcing the way we did was because he showed up.
It's been code word for the exact world that we're living in right now. It's code word for, like I'm a law enforcement candidate, or I'm a candidate of lawfulness,
rule of law candidate.
Or what was it called? The silent majority. But there you go. That's a
silent majority.
Silent majority. Yeah. Like the ones that can't speak up for all the crazies out there that are running around, and we have to join forces. I'm saying this is how it started with Nixon, and then Reagan had a term for it. Right?
Yeah,
and then it was Bush and the whole thing that created Bush, the war that we were living in. And it's just been, I'm saying it's a division that remains.
Biden and Clinton with the super predators.
Right. They contributed it too. It wasn't even a party thing at that point. It was just a perpetuation.
It never is a party thing. That's
you know what? What's terrible about it? Think about it. It's probably the one time that the most comprehensive legislation was agreed to, passed, bipartisan, by the most cooperative government under the principle that the war on drug works and we need to fucking do more shit to fucking bang on.
That was the 94 crime bill you're speaking of. Is that correct, Michael?
That's right.
Three strikes, you're out.
Mandatory minimum sentences.
Habitual fourth life in prison.
Do you know why that happened? There's some great video on YouTube. I'd recommend anyone that's interested in the history of this in Detroit. There's a guy that's got a channel called Al Prophet. He does a phenomenal story of how Detroit, late 40s, early 50s, was like the most desirable place in the world, really, to live. They had, it was a unique town. It had a tremendous amount of industry going on, a lot of jobs. People come from all over to live there. 2 cars in every garage. Doors were open. Kids going to college. It was a happy life for like this window of like 10, 15 years. And then, the auto industry started falling apart, jobs started going elsewhere, and it fell apart. And you see this. I mean, he tells the story of the corruption that came out of this, and all the pressures in the city, and how it just fell apart. But it is it shows how the manipulation of the prohibition of drugs was became an opportunity for a lot of people. And what really I'm getting at is that it is out of this scenario in Detroit that arises from mafia to some of the heroin and the YBI and the Pony Boys out of Detroit. All these federal laws about mandatory minimums, it was arising out of this. Like there was kingpins. Yep. They didn't know what a kingpin was. Right. The lawyers would beat these cases in state court all the time. The feds were like, wait a second, we got to get in on this. But I'm telling you, like Detroit and some of the crazy stuff that was going on. They had you guys know the history of some of this crack cocaine in Detroit with they had the streets set up. They'd use young kids to do all because you couldn't be charged as a felon, like a juvenile.
You can't arrest a child like that.
Right. They were just insane. They had this whole thing going on, and
that's what they had White Boy Rick doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just watched that Netflix documentary just last night.
Yeah.
Which documentary?
It was a pretty good watch on White Boy Rick.
Oh, they had a documentary.
Oh yeah.
It's a brand new documentary on it. It's one of those things as a Detroiter and somebody who's been here all my life and seen all that unfold as my thing goes. It's like, wow, you start putting it all together. Oh, I do remember that, and you're like, oh wait a minute.
Gil Hill? No, not Gil Hill. What's the guy's name? The chief of police under Coleman Young.
Mike McKinnon.
No. Go back further. Hart.
Oh yeah, Chief Hart.
Chief Hart was
he was the chief during the Nevers Bunsen.
But I think Coleman Young's one of his relatives was married to somebody that was tight with there was all
his niece.
Yeah, his niece was married to or part of his entourage.
White Boy Rick, wasn't it?
No, she dated him.
Yeah, that's it.
But, and you know what? It started out. This is what happened. It started out, and I saw this interview with the FBI agent that started. He went to, he was like a DEA agent. Comes to town, and he gets a hookup to meet up with White Boy Rick's dad. That's like a low-level kind of
deal.
Yeah, no, it's like a mob kind of running numbers and stuff. Yeah. And he's trying to give some information to.
Someone's got to run
as a CI, and as he's talking, he brings his son with him. He was like 14 at the time, and everything they asked, the kid's answering the questions. The 14, he knows the whole thing. So that's when they got him. He's been like, Rob, I don't want to, ruin the story for him, but he was used as an informant and got really deep into it, and then they turned around and
just left him.
And just left him and prosecuted him for being involved in all this because he knew too much, and they just left him in there and let him rot as a kid.
Yeah, essentially. Yeah, it's a great show. You really should watch it because we're talking about it now because it's really, and it's so weird when you go back and you look at it and how it ties to Mike Duggan. I mean, he's not involved, but it's mentioned. It's like, when he was, it blows my mind, and I'm not really.
He may have been. He was a prosecutor in Wayne County for a period of time, and probably had the opportunity to set it aside. I don't think he was involved in the conviction.
No, he was involved, but I mean, it's that whole thing of you see these things set up, and the fact that Kim Worthy kept him in there for so long, then all of a sudden was like, oh nope, we'll let him out now. You know what I mean? It's all leads up to all this very strange things that are make the same kind of things we always question as people. Of corruptions and why people, why I have to have conversations with my kids of respecting police officers because I do. It's just like one of those things, but it's hard sometimes.
Right. Well, what I tell my kids is it's yes sir, no sir. I'm not going to talk to you without my attorney, sir.
They never resist.
And always just be as nice and polite as you can with the police, and
that's right.
And don't say anything to them.
Well, real quick because I wanted to mention that Boston George passed away, since we were talking
God
about the whole cocaine stuff.
Boston George. I like Boston George.
Yeah.
I spent some time with Boston George at Cannapalooza. We sat and chatted. Jamie introduced me to him, and I sat there and BS with Boston George for at least an hour or two just while he was sitting there signing books and stuff. So we knew some of the same people, and good dude. I like the, his story.
Yeah.
And, he found a way, was making money doing it, and it's...
He spent a lot of time in jail. I don't think it's a happy ending.
Yeah, very long time in jail, 17 years. And then he got out, right? And then he went back for 2 more years.
For being an entrepreneur.
Well, I would say, listen, the story that we're talking about, White Boy Rick, White Boy Rick in the Netflix special, and the reference I made to the El Prophet and the history of Detroit and how this thing evolves into the YBI and Pony Boys, and in this story that we're talking about now, it all relates back to the doubling down on the crime bill and the in the just dumping of resources into the war on drugs, which, as we sit here today, back to the topic of bumping some cannabis lines.
Oh boy.
Who the fuck cares?
Who the fuck cares?
That's seriously, right. It's
leave people alone.
Whatever reasons have been built into our conscience that this is a bad idea.
Well,
I mean, it is a bad idea.
Came from the birth of thousands of bad ideas.
It's a horrible idea, but whatever. You want to make a bad idea?
If somebody wants to try a bad idea, let them try a bad idea.
Whatever, man.
Listen,
more power to you.
Better to have it available and regulated than to have someone, chopping up some bad stuff.
I want to know who's regulating this cannabis powder that you snort. Like, what agency?
What's the difference of buying, distillate that's decarboxylated in a container that they call diamonds?
Like it's cut with something. That's why.
Yeah. Well, that's what you got to have.
What is that? Flour?
It's just chunks.
No, Dan told me earlier what it is. It's cut with something. It is cut with something. Dan was telling me earlier. I can't remember what he told me.
That's a good question. What would be the substance that would naturally be, go hand in hand with the nostril ingestion method?
Right.
That would go good also in the distillate. I don't know.
I used to look at the diamonds when we were testing out the diamonds when those first came out. I was like, just thinking, that looks like something you'd snort.
Yes.
I mean, it would probably be a waste of product because you're not doing it in the proper manner. I don't know if you'd get a psychoactive effect by snorting diamonds.
No.
I wonder how the psychoactive effect is on Canna Bumps.
I don't know.
That's the thing. We don't know. We have not determined
yet.
But
I don't think I'd want to try it.
We have not determined yet if the flaky flake is actually decarboxylated. Because if it's not,
or
then
does your body heat decarbonate?
That's what I said. How hot's the nose?
We're gonna, what?
All right, here we're gonna have to do. Next week we're gonna roll out some lines. Steve's gonna be a guinea pig.
We're gonna make Justin do it.
Okay.
Justin.
Up and pick up some TCHA.
Yeah. We'll grab some diamonds and.
By the way, unfortunately, because of this product is so desired right now. Who doesn't want some right now? Come on, we've been talking. I'm kidding. But
I just can't. I don't like putting things up my nose.
Of course, nobody does.
Well, unless you're into cocaine.
Some people do.
Here's a good question. No one's talking about this. I'm glad I remembered it. What about just gummies? Just kidding. All right.
Yeah.
Oh.
No, they want to make those illegal.
I meant like the.
Yeah.
Not illegal, just in certain places.
That would probably be a good opportunity. That's a good ingestion method, but they don't mean it like that. I don't know how effective it would be up your nose.
Let's be honest. If there's not some cocaine in that stuff, who really wants it? That's the other side of it, right? Come on, that's like. Just kidding. All right.
I'll stick with my preferred methods.
I know. This is all off the cuff and just silliness.
It is off the cuff, and I just want to reiterate that these people are going to lose a lot of money on this product.
You know what? But I think Rob's right.
Yeah.
That they're probably going to kill it on the
they'll kill it right
outset.
out of the gate.
Yeah, out of the gate. People are going to be like,
and then they're going to use all that money, and they're going to invest on all this inventory.
They're going to use it one time, and they're going to be like, oh, what a bad experience, or
If the guys making it are smart about it, there'll be one run and done.
Yeah, one run and done.
Wait a second.
That's what happened because they were pulled off the shelf.
Would anyone be disappointed that we just spent so much time talking about it if it was in fact true that this is an Onion article? It's still possible.
No,
We haven't
it's not
ruled that
an
out.
onion.
We have not ruled that out. I know it's like leafy. It's leafy. It's a leafy onion version. I don't know. It could be. We have to. We're doing some research on that. It could still be.
Times version.
Yeah, I guess.
Well,
Our official stance is who the fuck cares? Snort your weed.
Right.
Snort your weed.
Whatever.
That's fine.
As far as
Whatever.
ingestion methods go, I wouldn't care. I just, as we all said, it's just something I wouldn't want to put my.
Yeah, I wouldn't
branding
want to do
around.
it either, but
all right, here we go. We're going to talk of politics, generally speaking, just in terms of the policies of the war on drugs by the. I mean, by the champion of the war on drugs himself, and.
that's right.
Mr. Sloppy Joe Biden, ladies and gentlemen.
But who and why would anyone think otherwise? I mean, I'm not saying good, bad, or otherwise, but you don't.
I knew what we were
You
getting.
don't, wind up and punch yourself in the face and do that same motion over again, not thinking you're gonna get punched in the face.
No, what the fuck did people think was going to happen?
Anyways, this is not a political position. I think we should. I'm whatever's said right now does not represent my position in politics. I am just criticizing what is the obvious. Is it fair to say?
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's it.
President Biden isn't too busy to carry out the
Stating
cruelties
the
of the drug war. Okay. As we near the 3-month mark of his administration, President Biden's cannabis policy has so far been defined by inaction and unforced errors.
Yeah.
Sports metaphors, there's nothing worse than unforced errors. That's like you're losing the game before you even get up to the plate, or before you even take a swing, or before you take a kick.
You're calling it in.
Cannabis is so absent that the White House's official year 1 drug policy priorities list issued on April 1st, but not a joke, and yet also a joke, doesn't even mention the word cannabis. Good leadership. I mean, if there was someone that was going to take a particular leadership in terms of some of the topics we're talking about, such as Delta 8, scheduling, okay, this is a good opportunity. What's going on? Earlier this week, the Chronicles asked Vice President, San Francisco Chronicles asked Vice President Kamala Harris about legalization. She said, "We haven't yet taken that on because the White House has been focused on getting shots into arms and other essentials."
Oh, okay. Tell me, what have they exactly been doing?
See, this is one of the problems. The significance of the failure of the war on drugs exists every day, and there's a daily contribution to those failures and the statistics that support the failures, and it still never becomes important. If there's always something else that seems like, well, people are sick, we can't deal with the war on drugs. Well, we need to do a stimulus budget, we can't deal with the war on drugs. All right, I'm just saying it's
well, and
politics.
then you had some of the staffers that were more.
Well, let's go back into. So we're still standing in 30,000 feet, just criticizing stupidity, not taking a political position. Fair enough. The Biden-Harris team got 150 million shots and 150 million arms in 75 days. A huge success that deserves widespread praise.
It does.
But
That's true.
But governments are built to tackle many issues at once. It's true. There could be a thing that
big and they have branches.
there
right?
could be a thing that there's been so much anything getting done and none of any addressing of the pandemic. The very least amount of something that takes place of getting 150 million in 150 arms in 75 days was never something that anyone would have ever thought from past experiences, and that alone gets all the credit, and you don't get anything bad after that. That may be the perception of many, right?
Yep.
It's also, I got to say, does anyone feel, I mean, listen, there was a comedy aspect of it. There was a, kind of a not funny comedy aspect of how prevalent the dialogue from the executive branch was in the daily news. The things that were coming out of the executive branch, their positions on things and how it spun and controlled the media, cycles and whatnot. It was a little exhausting, I mean, I think over the 4 years I had so many different reactions to it. I think, early on, whatever it was, I was more emotional and reactive to it. Then I was like, fuck it, I don't care. Then I looked for humor in it. Then it got boring. And, it just became like, then I was like, okay, both sides suck,
But at the end of the day, he did more for cannabis then
all right, we're not talking about
these people could even hope. He's for the right to try.
Well, I'll tell you what's more offensive is once again, there's lies that got them into position. But
yeah, as usual.
All right, so some of President Biden's direct reports, in fact, wasted precious days last month firing 5 White House staffers for being honest about their past cannabis consumption.
Yep.
They may have even been proud of it.
Yep.
A political own goal that made sense to exactly nobody. Other Biden employees continue to ruin lives by imposing prison sentences that we'd call human rights violations if they happened overseas. Last month, U.S. Attorney in Massachusetts, who works for Biden's Attorney General, sent a Boston area plumber to federal prison for 12 years. As Leafly's Dave Howard noted, the plumber's crime wasn't murder or assault. It was growing weed without a license. That same month, police in Allen, Texas, arrested Marvin Scott III for minor cannabis possession 4 hours later after being choked, pepper sprayed, and blinded with a restraining hood. Scott died in police custody. The only reason Marvin Scott was in police custody, the only reason he was killed was the 2 ounces of weed police found in his pocket. This is happening under Biden's command. Federal law didn't directly cause Marvin Scott's death, but there's a strong chain of custody leading from the Biden White House to the death of a man in Texas's holding cell. That custody began with President Biden's decision to fire 5 staffers for consuming a product that's legal for all adults in 17 states. President power is expressed in word and symbol as much as in policy and law. The firing of the Biden 5 sent a clear message from the president. These people are unworthy of my trust. Those firings reinforce a program of racism and forced stigmatism carried out by the federal government since the 1930s. Congress outlawed cannabis in 1937 based on Harry Anslinger's bag of racist beans. Since then, the unjust federal criminalization has been upheld by convincing. This is us earlier. Who knew that they were going to? They must be listening to this show and writing. Right. By convincing generations of Americans that people who enjoy cannabis are dirty criminals who get what they deserve. In the 1980s, DARE taught children to report their pot-smoking parents to the cops, kind of like my story about the soccer practice today. In the 1990s, the Clinton White House secretly paid network television producers to depict cannabis consumers as shiftless losers. They did what? Come on. Yeah. I didn't know that.
I didn't either.
And he only inhaled. In 2020, I want to know what shows there. Since we can figure this out, what network television producers depicted cannabis consumers as shiftless losers at the direction of the Clinton White House? Who's Googling? Anybody? All right. I need to look at Jamie from the Joe Rogan show. Does anyone know what I'm talking about? Jamie.
Like Half-Baked, would you say? I mean, everyone liked Half-Baked, right?
I never saw it.
Oh, God.
That's a great movie.
Yeah.
Friday.
Yeah, Dave Chappelle.
Friday movies are great.
Friday's always good.
Yeah, I can watch those anytime.
In the 20s, President Biden is firing White House staffers and treating weed-growing plumbers like murderers. Stigma is the soil in which cruelty thrives. Through his action, Biden sent a nod and a wink to cops nationwide, giving them the green light to keep arresting Marvin Scotts and kill them. I said that, not this article. He provided political cover for his old friends in the Senate, giving them permission to stall legalization bills that continue the worst atrocities of all the failed war on drugs. Barely 3 months this term, Joe Biden is continuing the vicious narrative that stigmatizes cannabis consumers as immoral, unclean, shifting, dangerous. Cannabis stigma kills. It killed Marvin Scott. It killed Philip Castile, Keith Clement Scott. The Minnesota cop who shot Castile said the purported smell of marijuana from Castile's car made him fear for his life because it's a Schedule 1. It's so dangerous. It is dangerous. It might as well be nuclear waste, a bald eagle, or kiddie porn. The idea is preposterous to anyone who's actually.
Did the courts buy that?
Enjoyed cannabis
from the police officer.
That's it. It almost doesn't matter because the idea that the cop could suggest that and think that it might matter, right? That's really the thing.
I can tell you, in 25 years of police work and all my contact with marijuana, I was never once in fear for my life because of the marijuana. Nor did I see it harm anybody. Nor did I see it cause any crimes. It certainly didn't cause any violence.
But the law at the time told you that it was dangerous. It was
Dangerous
Schedule
drugs,
1, and if you
Schedule
sensed it, you could go into a car and you could rip people out.
Gave you the key to the door.
And even though the state's selling it legally and collecting taxes for it, if you have a thing called Delta 8, we're going to call it Schedule 1.
Contraband.
That's how
Could
this
you
whole thing
imagine
started.
if Bill Schuette was in office right now with
Oh, my
Delta 8?
goodness. That would be terrible.
Wow.
I mean, just imagine.
Do you think it would be any different?
That's a vote for Dana Nessel, Steve. That's what you're saying. That's what I'm hearing. You're kind of a supporting of.
Well, I mean, she's better than he was. I got to give her that.
I gotta agree with that.
I mean, that guy was a joke.
He was.
Well, you know what we say about Bill Schuette.
8 years. 8 years of decimating a medical marijuana community in a state that voted the law in.
You know what,
by
Jim? I feel
majority.
like we had the same experience in the 4 years of this last thing, just the politics of it and how much attention and what an easy target it became after a while. It became boring and not enlightening and not even challenging to make, Same thing with Schuette. For 8 years, we did the same thing. Like he was such an easy.
Fuck Bill Schuette.
It was right. That's whatever. I mean, if we had 360 episodes at that time, I think we did 349 of them about Bill Schuette.
Well,
his name was almost never not mentioned.
Well, that's because he didn't like us.
That was his career. 8 years in office. I'm going after the marijuana people. I'm putting my foot on this political ground as the guy who went after marijuana.
I will say this. The one thing that I think there was like 4 in the first year as AG. He came in obsessed. I remember we had that huge rally in 2011.
Yeah, it was fun.
Like 8,000 or 9,000 people on the steps of.
Good time.
And it was because they
Party
just.
at the loft that time. Remember?
Yes, I do. And what had happened is the Bill Schuette, as the Attorney General in the executive branch, former judiciary on the Court of Appeals, shows up to the Attorney General and introduces legislation. He's like, "Let me do all 3 branches. Just step aside. The kingdom is mine."
That's right.
I'm gonna tell you how to do. So he introduced like 12 bills, and there was all this protesting and whatnot. So he became an easy target, and we spent a lot of time screaming and yelling about him, and none of the bills passed.
No, but he did a lot of damage.
It was around the time of McQueen too. I think that's the thing that happened. Yeah.
Yeah, he did a ton of damage.
Yeah.
It was not great. So.
Remember that video of him when he's getting interviewed in like a hotel room by a reporter, and he kind of is like, "Oh, I'll do whatever you say," one of those kind of things.
I do.
Yeah, total creeper. I think that destroyed him for some reason. I think people saw him as
I don't think so. I think that it's just that he wasn't Bill Schuette was not likable. He's just not a likable guy.
But I'm telling you, I think that kind of video with all those things said of why he's not our guy.
I don't think
that's like one that puts someone over the edge.
No, I don't think it had anything to do with it.
A lot of people may not have liked him, but they're not going to vote for somebody else.
But they just it's the
You're right.
It's
Okay,
those
fine,
independents in the middle, right? And they looked at someone like Rick Snyder that's like, "Oh, I'm a big geek, I'm a nerd," and they're like, "Oh, this guy's likable," so they vote for him.
Yeah. Well, he's a business guy. He'll set everything
Bill
straight.
Schuette, as the top cop. I mean, maybe because he seems like a hard ass. But is that who you want to be your governor? Probably not. And I think that's really what lost him the election. I mean, Granholm, she's likable, or she was.
You
at
mean
least.
Whitmer?
Or no, yeah, Whitmer.
I always do that too.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah,
they're like interchangeable. Whitmer, Granholm, Whitmer.
Whitmer. I mean, she was likable, and especially compared to Bill Schuette, it's like, who do you want to be the governor?
Yeah. That's it.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, let me say this. I think just like I think just like what's going to happen in the next election cycle, both at the federal level and the state level, the opportunities of the administration that has the majority right now and seems to be in control and has the opportunity to set policy is not going to take place. There's going to be a lot of reverb or pushback and feedback, and a reactionary election will take place the next time around. You know what I mean? There's a lot of people that, and
maybe you want to run for
I'm not running for
Attorney
anything.
General on the Libertarian ticket.
The opportunities of taking the lead are slowly slipping away, and I am not confident that, as this article suggests, this House Bill 4570 or whatever it is, the idea that the legislature is opening up MRTMA, opening up the MMFLA, and God forbid the MMMA, it's not going to be good.
Nope.
It's not going to be good.
But I'm going to tell you, they are going to open that act one way or another.
Let me explain to you. When you have people that have no concept of what we've gone through over the last 10 years, 12 years, 15 years, and they start tinkering with the definition of marijuana, the definition which is finally settled at a place that gives it some meaningful protections, and now you're going to start adding shit and making seeds, which have, even in the worst case scenario under the federal definition, seeds were not part of it. Right. The mature stalk, not part of it. The oils from it, not part of it. And now they're just going to say, we're just going to change all that. We have hemp now. They can't even, this is insane. There's nobody paying attention to what's going on. This is why, and where would they ever get the idea that this is something their people want? Right. We had a statewide vote. It doesn't give you the legal authority to take the intention of the vote and redo it because you didn't do it yourself.
Right.
Didn't like the outcome, so.
And why didn't they like the outcome, Jim? I don't understand.
Well, because, Steve,
we got to get Yusuf Rabi on and start asking him questions.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah.
What is that?
I think it goes to show, and I hate to say it, but not really. I think people need to take a good, long, hard look at this sort of thing and understand what's going to happen when they start pushing this driving legislation through the legislature. If anybody thinks this shit is DOA, you are sadly mistaken. And we are going to have to act, or they are going to significantly impact people's ability to drive in this state.
This is what's going on also. Here's something that's very important. The people of the state of Michigan passed this recreational law, like they did the MMA. It was intended to protect, to not make it criminal anymore. And what you can see is that the legislators' response, which could have been, we'll adopt it and write it ourselves after it passed enough signatures, they didn't do that. The law passed. They lost an election because of it. And now they are taking that law that was intended to have very specific intentions, eliminate the even principal concept of criminalizing, arresting, and they are undoing all that. And they're eliminating stuff that they don't have the consent to do so. They don't have the legal authority to do so. I mean, they may be able to pull it off because they got 75% of the vote, but in what the simple message is of And here's the other thing. Think about this. Who is driving this philosophy? It's the industry itself. It's the competitive process of we want it all.
Yep.
Kill the quote-unquote gray market.
It's what they paid for.
Well,
are they losing money, Jim?
Is it fair?
They're not gaining it by these people.
Is it fair for us to say that it's good that we have a commercial market, at the same time complain that this guy in the commercial market is a pig more than the rest? Or aren't we all just part of a big cup of, guacamole soup?
I think that the second that we are throwing each other under the bus and basically narking one another out, that's a problem. And we've seen it over and over again. And I don't care what guise they do it under. It is what it is. So let's call it what it is and start calling people out.
Right. The answer to this is not to make it more illegal and create more prohibitions for the sake of making it prohibitive, criminalizing so that the industry can make more money. The idea is to decriminalize, uncriminalize, unschedule it, and let the market dictate the best product, the best operator, the nicest people when you walk into their store. But this is why this doesn't work. This is the failures of prohibition. And it's unfortunate that in 2021, there's newspaper articles that are written quoting administrators that aren't elected on the dangers of Delta 8 THC. And that it needs to be...
I'm still not understanding what those dangers are. Can somebody clue me in what the dangers are?
They're dangerous dangers. Steve. They're very dangerous, but we can't tell them about them because that would be dangerous to you. You don't need that information, Steve.
Okay.
But you do need
I
to
just
know.
need to know that it's dangerous.
It's dangerous, and you can trust the government.
And they're going to put it on Schedule 1?
Right. They're going to schedule one. And right the fuck out of here, Steve. You're not going to have to worry about that dangerous danger.
I'm leaving that Delta 8 alone, Joe.
right.
Sounds too dangerous to me.
And not to change the topic, but I wonder how the Canna Bumps would look in the in the tea steeping instead. Wouldn't that work well there? You came with a little.
It would.
Yeah. Get it kind of.
Yeah.
Mix
Some
it
in there? Yeah. It'd be like a sugar pack.
Like a sugar pack, right?
You can do that.
I think Dan said that's what
Well,
it's
if they
cut
would've
with
sold
is
it in
an
a sugar
artificial.
pack.
I think it's cut with an artificial sweetener.
Probably.
Even. I think that's what
Sold it in
Dan
a
was
little
telling
baggie.
me.
That sounds terrible.
Yeah. Little aspartame.
We could try it in the dessert
It's in
teas.
little baggies.
But what if it ruins the taste of the dessert tea?
Yeah, don't do that. Let's stick with what's known.
THC is odorless and tasteless.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, unless it's a Canna Bump.
In that form, it seems like it
Well,
would
then they just
have a
flavor it
smell.
anyway.
But you know, if they wanted to make flavored Canna Bumps, it'd be illegal, probably, right?
Yeah,
Just
can't
kidding.
flavor anything.
That's right.
There'll be no more flavors in the United States of America.
You will have bland
No.
shit and like it.
No ketchup.
Blandly,
No ketchup.
there will be no salt, nor any
Condiments are illegal.
Because no kids are going to smoke. Because kids only smoke because of flavors.
That's right.
It's
So-
And menthol.
So I need to share a
Yeah.
story I
Nicotine
had today.
buzz.
I had today with my eye doctor, and I think she has young children. And this was the first time I'd met her, and I think I mentioned I was a retired police officer or something like that. So she starts talking to me about her worries about the marijuana businesses popping up all over the place and what's she to do about her children. And I said, I said that's what, I work in a law office now. We do cannabis law. You have absolutely nothing to worry about from a retired police officer. The sky is not falling. Your kids are not going to succumb to some evil thing.
the
Then
weed
she
devil.
says, "Oh, really? Okay." And like she's, saying, "Yeah, that makes sense." And then she's like, "Well, what about the driving? I'm just concerned that we're gonna have all these
Yeah, there
high
it is.
drivers all over the
Yeah.
road." And I said,
But it's not happening
I
now.
said, "Ma'am," I said, "I worked patrol for 25 years. Was a police officer. Pulled over a lot of people, arrested a lot of drunk drivers." I said, "I never once even considered, the thought never crossed my mind about, what, this person is impaired by marijuana and it has affected their ability to drive. I need to lock them up." Never. 25 years, and I worked a busy area, Canton Township, Michigan Avenue,
Yeah.
Ford
A
Road,
lot of high
Haggerty,
ends.
275. And I always tell people, if I smelled marijuana in the car, if they had it in there, they were likely going to jail for the possession of the marijuana.
Yeah.
But I wasn't even considering that they were impaired. Their ability to drive was impaired. So I explained that to her too, and she seemed to be agreeable with that as well.
Good.
And
Did you tell her it's good for glaucoma?
no, I didn't get into any of that with her.
Well, that would have sold her, I think. That would have brought it home.
I should have, because we were discussing glaucoma,
That is
because
one
she
of
was
the
saying how
qualifying
glaucoma,
conditions.
when you hit 50, everybody starts getting a little bit of glaucoma.
Yeah.
Is that right?
That's what she said. And it was a perfect opportunity, and I didn't think to
you gotta
use that as,
Thread the needle.
don't you think it's good for glaucoma? I should have asked her. If all my
Next
He probably doesn't know.
with all the oil I take in and the joints I smoke, do you suppose I won't get glaucoma?
Yeah, we're going to have to take some measurements.
Yeah.
We'll see. I mean, both my parents had surgery for glaucoma, so
Oh, so you're a good
I guess we'll
example. Good guinea pig.
we'll see if cannabis prevents.
One of the things I would have asked her is, what if I take some of this Canna Bump powder, rub it in my eye? Will that hurt me? Just kidding.
Probably sting.
What if I
You
stick it up my
probably
bum?
could- well, I'm sure people would do that too. But I mean, any
They have those
orifice, I
suppositories.
suppose.
Suppositories. They have those.
Yeah.
They have those.
My God.
They're good
You
for.
could probably put the Canna Bump in some Vaseline.
There you
Put
go.
it in a tea bag.
Yeah, tea bag.
Yeah, you could teabag.
We're back to the what is it called?
Steeping.
Steeping.
The tea bagging.
Oh boy.
It goes from a quick spooning to a teabagging real fast. Watch it. It escalates fast.
You know, spooning, teabagging,
does.
honey
Just kidding.
dripping.
Yeah.
All right. All right. That's you can leave it right there.
I
That's a
think
good one.
Yeah, that's a good close.
We are. We do like bees though. We must say first.
Yes.
Yeah, who doesn't?
All right.
I mean,
All right.
really.
Good healthy products from the hive, that's for sure.
Out there on the Zoom line, thanks for hanging in there with us, guys. I appreciate you and all your input tonight.
Yeah, thanks, Chad and Rob.
Anytime.
Anytime, man.
When does it go into effect? Should we just come buy up a bunch of THC-8 stuff somewhere? I don't know. We
Crates of
gotta.
that shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I kind of talk about it a little bit, you know, just because I've got like a lot.
Well, I'll
You know,
take some of the gummies because I really liked those gummies.
We just did like this huge order on packaging and stuff like that, you know, like case packaging, and it's just kind of like,
Yeah.
you know, but it's still not gone everywhere, and it's not here yet, so it just keep
trucking along till somebody tells you can't.
Yeah, and it's like, you know, luckily we don't actually, you know, most of the products aren't really produced in the state now, so it's...
Wait a second. I just had a great idea. Why don't we make some THC-8 bumpers? What a great idea. Can we do
I'm
that?
actually surprised there's not,
Yeah.
to be honest with you.
The Delta 8 bumps.
That'll be in the gas stations next week.
I've been really... The way that the
That'll be the
market...
nail in the coffin, man.
That would probably do really well.
Probably would. So,
Planet Green Tree is the place to come for ideas.
but I do like those Delta 8 gummies though. Those are excellent.
Yeah, they are very good.
Yeah, you have to give some more.
I got
And
your,
the,
I got
and the
your,
Salve,
my
too.
mom on your topicals.
What was your idea
too.
this morning? At the beginning of the show, we had some idea. I was making
Delta
fun of you.
8
It's the tea thing, maybe. That's what it was. All right.
Yeah.
It was the tea bag.
It was the tea bag. We're back to tea bag.
And honey dripping. All right, let's leave
Yeah,
it there.
we talked about
Thank you for
tea
listening.
probably 2
We
weeks
can
ago.
stay safe, everyone. Tune in next week and we'll tell you what other things that are not illegal become illegal and prohibited in Michigan for no reason.
Like pissing.
Yeah, like pee.
We can be your
fake
source.
urine.
We can be your source of of all things that seem ridiculous as reported.
Just add it to the list of things that don't make sense.
Well, there's our
no more
segment.
fetish urine for all you guys.
It's too bad
outsource.
we can't have like a listening viewers show of the Trailer Park Boys episode of the like illegal pea trade that went on. You know what I mean? Like that's one to watch and kind of have a. We should have a film festival. We should have where we can gather and stuff.
That would be fun.
that would be
We should do an event.
Yeah, that would be a lot of fun.
Really, because all the reasons why some of these things are prohibited have been explained in a serious way and then mocked either, you know, as why they should be illegal or that they really shouldn't be.
That's actually a great idea for an event.
Yeah.
An outdoor film
Sounds
festival.
like a good thing to occur in August.
Especially right in the.
Well, August we got
All right,
Cannapalooza.
July.
let's just stay
Yeah.
tuned for more
All right.
more about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're
Outdoor
working on something
gatherings.
brought to you by
Outdoor gatherings,
The
as long as
Cannabis
it's not a
Entertainment
contact
Corner.
sport. I don't think smoking cannabis is a contact sport yet, but I think they could no mask under 100 people or so. Right? Is that what it is?
Yeah. I think so.
Here's something that's interesting.
But I think it's unlimited if people bring their multi-pass.
Here's something that's interesting.
Yeah.
You are allowed to now have people in your house without a mask if they've been vaccinated. Did you know the government's stopping you from doing that?
I mean, I did, but I didn't care.
I didn't know they were.
I mean, I understand that, and they do it for purposes of protection, but I just think it's.
I
It
mean,
seems strange, doesn't it?
I
Like,
mean, to
I mean, the
save
fact that
you
they
from
lifted that
yourself.
prohibition, hearing that seemed. That was the weirdest thing, you know. Like, oh,
Yeah.
guess what? It's okay to have
it's
people
like,
over
oh,
now.
yeah, I forgot about that.
But you're right, exactly. But you got to have your passport.
Well, I got mine. I got
Crazy.
I got the
I know.
multi-pass. So I'm all micro.
You need it on your driver's license too.
Bill Gates
Hey,
is tracking
you need
me.
it on your
Yeah.
driver's license. You got your star on your driver's license. Everyone have that?
No,
Yeah.
but
The
I have
Yeah.
something even better.
I got
Because
they
my
had-
license
was
is the
weird, too.
enhanced license that has the
Yeah.
microchip
That's-
in it, the RFID.
Yeah.
I think I want that. I think I have that.
Yeah.
I think I
That means that they can
Yeah.
track you and also
That's right.
identify if you have cash in your wallet. I think
But they
this is.
Whatever they want.
certainly
They'll RFID you.
All right.
That's what they're putting into everybody with these vaccines.
Next week, we're going to get the data printouts of Jim's RFD chip and where it's been, and we'll show you exactly what we're talking about.
You don't want to know.
We'll also have a live report from inside of a, what were those things called that I said before? The, the police system that the, whatever. All right, never mind.
Yeah.
All right, that's it. We've had enough, everybody.
Right.
Thank you, everybody. Be safe. We will talk back at you next week.
All right, good night.
Take care. All right.
Shut it down, Tommy!
The Planet Green Trees Show.
Join the Michigan Medical Marijuana Association today. MichiganMedicalMarijuana.org. The MMMA is focused on the well-being and safety of medical marijuana patients. The MMMA site provides the most comprehensive and up-to-date news on legal issues, politics, research, cultivation, as well as the various strange products and methods of cannabis use. Come join the discussion with the most knowledgeable and passionate advocates in Michigan today. MichiganMedicalMarijuana.org.
Before you plead, call me, Attorney Michael Komorn.
An important and historical farm crop in American agriculture is returned after having been classified as a controlled substance and illegal. On December 20th, 2018, the President signed the Farm Bill, also known as the Agriculture Improvement Act of 2018, into law. The signing of the act was great news for the hemp industry, which amended the definition of marijuana in the Federal Controlled Substances Act. Hemp is now defined as the plant, Cannabis sativa L, and any part of the plant, growing or not, with less than 0.3% THC concentration on a dry basis. The plant itself is no longer a controlled substance. Hemp is one of the most versatile plants on earth. From clothing, fiber, paper, building materials, hempcrete, biofuels, CBD, and medical uses, it has been a part of America's industry for over 200 years. Even the United States Constitution was drafted on hemp paper. The time is now. If you're thinking of getting in the farming or processing of hemp, contact our global experts, legal, and consultation teams to make sure that you're on the right road when you venture into the new hemp industrial revolution. Michigan Hemp Industries has been a leader and advocate for the return of the hemp industry, so come be a part of the new revolution in agriculture in Michigan.